Hi there, everyone. We'll make a start. Welcome. A very good afternoon. Thank you for joining. My name is Will Sibley. I'll be hosting this session entitled Site Scoping with Land App Finding the Right Land Faster. So if you don't know me, I'm one of the account executives. Rosie, my colleague here, is also to support today technically, as well as answer a few of your questions throughout the session. So if you're here in the audience today and you struggle to understand new sites, different areas of land for whatever project or opportunities you might be looking at, in this webinar, we'll demonstrate some very simple um, tools that make you understand or make it much easier for you to understand those different projects and areas of land. And then you'll learn how to quickly use Land App to assess that in different land parcels, ultimately saving you time, reducing any risk that you might be undertaking, and then ultimately helping you to support your decisions at speed. We're continuously developing Land App, and your feedback is very valuable to us. So these webinars not only act as a way for us to showcase different aspects of Land App, but also for you to share your feedback, your questions, and how we can improve the tool. So please do be engaged. And we've got the Q&A function at the bottom somewhere on your screen for you to submit your questions. So, bit of housekeeping before we begin. Your camera and microphone will be turned off as this is a webinar. But like I just mentioned there, the Q&A function is really there for you to submit and interact with myself and Rosie throughout. And we've also saved some time at the end for a good Q&A. This webinar will be recorded as usual and then uploaded onto our YouTube channel about 3 to 5 days after the recording, depending on how busy our marketing team are. That's a really great resource if you want to look at quick 3-minute walkthrough videos of different functions in Land App, as well as these webinars too, if you want to look at a whole kind of workflow or certain theme in 1 hour. They're all there, and there's plenty of resources to look at on that channel. And then lastly, we do have a survey, post survey for this webinar that should be pop up on your screen as we end the session. So please do fill that out for us before you leave. Quick run through of the agenda. So we'll share in a moment some new product updates, some quite exciting ones to share with you. And then we'll go into the live demo. That should last about 20-25 minutes. And then, as I mentioned, we've left some time at the end to work through your questions. That should be about 15 minutes. So we should finish at about 1 p.m. But yeah, if you want to stick around, please do let us know. And me and Rosie are happy to spend a bit of time after 1 p.m. talking to you one-to-one if you would like that. And then moving on to these product updates. So first off, these were launched yesterday. On the image on your left, you'll see the publish and unpublish button has now been updated. So for those of you in the standard or professional subscription in Land App, you would be utilizing or have access to what we call the map of maps, which is essentially a way for you to publish different maps in your organization account onto one layer, one aggregated layer that you can view at a landscape view, could be a portfolio view, or in a planning authority or whatever. And this is a really great tool, not only to visualize that, but you can also aggregate the data that sits within it. So if you're working in that form, you can publish maps. This button used to be right next to the plan name, but we've actually moved it, as you can see, by clicking on those three dots next to your plan. And there's a publish unpublish button. So hopefully that's a lot more discoverable than it was before. If you are interested in learning more about that function in the room, I know there's we've got a mix of both standard and professional users, but also free users in the audience. If you do want to get in touch with us and learn more about that, please do mention that. And Rosie's going to share a little link about our different features that sit within our subscriptions. And then on the right, you can see also in the standard or professional tier is we've just introduced a new historical map This one's actually from Ordnance Survey, although the source isn't from Ordnance Survey, it's actually from another provider. So therefore, it's not Ordnance Survey licensed data. But you can now see view maps from 1900, which is a really requested function, and we finally got around to providing that. So that's good news, and we'll have a little sneak peek as we get into the demo too. And then secondly, looking at new data layers. So our data engineering team have managed to introduce quite a few in the last month or two, looking at starting with the environmental agreements that we have. So environmental stewardship across England. So in combination with as well as the countryside stewardship layers, you can now see different areas on your map where they're under agri-environment scheme agreements. Woodland Carbon Code is introduced too, so you'll see the different Woodland Carbon Code sites that are either agreed or under development, and they've been verified for carbon sequestration under that code, which is interesting, validated and under development projects will be there. England peat map, so this is quite a new data layer from Natural England. You'll be able to view different peats or peaty soil extent areas in England, and that was quite a big data set. So please do have a look, it's quite something. Probable overland flows, so this data is looking at the likely routes of water flow on your map, highlighting areas where there's going to be a lot of accumulation. There's potentially different diffuse pollution and soil erosion areas too. And that's from the Environment Agency data. Biodiversity net gain sites, so they're different point locations that you'll see on your map that will give you more information about sites on the BNG register. You do need to be in a professional subscription to view that. Flood maps for planning. So flood zones, this is another Environment Agency data set that almost replaces Flood Zone 2 and Flood Zone 3 and shows the existing present day land, I suppose, of the flooding from rivers and seas. So that's a updated one from the usual that we see, and you can actually see that on that image there. That's the new flood map for planning data layer. Quickly rattling through the important invertebrate areas. So these are actually from Bug Life. It's a data set highlighting different areas that support both nationally and internationally different invertebrate populations and their habitats. And quite an important one for looking at planning situations. And then lastly, the planning applications data layer. So this it's actually in beta mode being we're under test at the moment. So we're just testing it out, what it's like for our users. And there is a feedback function that you can share any feedback with us about that. It's still under development, but you can, if you're in a professional subscription, look at different planning applications as a point on your map, and then you'll get a link to whichever planning authority that's associated with. So that's quite exciting. Appreciate there's quite a lot of data layers there. But please do have a look if any of those are interesting to you. And then moving on to the demo itself. So, and the theme of this session, site finding is quite a broad stroke theme, and I've checked, we've got a quite wide range of different people from different organisations and sectors in the audience today. I think the key points we want to get across in terms of how LandApp is valuable for this and different site analysis, that it makes quite complex interpretations of different sites that you might need to undertake. So that's basically looking at a lot of spatial data sets of designations, much easier and much quicker than you usually would. And then in tangent with that, the need to visualize all that complex data, you can do that really easily in LandApp with a range of our core mapping functions, as well as the printing abilities that you can see on the right there. And we'll show these different use cases or illustrate these use cases here, but I'll be focusing mainly on looking at a solar project in the demo. But it's just really a showcase um, of what these different functions can do. And if you're not working in the solar or renewable energy sector, use this demo to try and relate what you can do with them in your own sectors and jobs. So we'll be really honing in on both land registry data and then data layers in the demo. Okay, so moving on, and whilst I'm getting land app up, please do think about your questions as you go through. So you should see land app now on your screen, and I've actually prepared this map here for us to begin the demo. So if you're brand new to land app, I can quickly just whiz through a bit of navigation of what you can see here. Starting from the top, we've got different base maps available from this menu here. The default is OpenStreetMap, that we can see now. But we can also use Ordnance Survey maps, Ordnance Survey Lite, which is basically a grayscale one if you just saw there. And we can have different satellite imagery base maps. Well, there's a bit of cloud there. That's unfortunate. And then also this aerial imagery too, which is a much crisper, cleaner version of that photographic view of the land. Whilst we're here, we can actually look at the historic base map that I showed a moment ago. So we're in Kent, and this is the map of what it was like in 1900. So I imagine this base map is really good, not only just for seeing what was present in that day, under context around, you want to restore different habitats or different buildings, but also it's just a really interesting one to look at. If I overlay the land registry data, you can actually see where there's been quite a bit of sprawl, urban sprawl, that is, from different areas. So that's quite interesting. Please do have a play around with that. As mentioned, the historic base map is available for standard and professional users, so you won't see that in free. And likewise for this land registry data, data layer too. It's an interesting one. Okay, but for the demo, I'll use this Ordnance Survey Lite base map, which is quite a nice, crisp and clean base map that we want to use. So speaking of land registry, it makes sense maybe if I cover that first, as it's quite important for this context. I've prepared two sites here, site 2 and then site 1 for our solar sites. To do that, all I did was click New and import data, and then click Pick from the land registry. And I can just zoom in. What you just saw there, I can see all the different land registry titles mapped out on our map, and I can click on any of those, just click Next and choose a blank template, and that's downloaded instantly for me. So not only is that a really quick way of downloading any land title, secondly, as it's a direct link with the land registry's mapping portal, you can be pretty confident that this is authoritative. This is what it looks like there. According to the land registry, this is our map and all the parcels that sit under it. I can also view the area and perimeter, but also we've got title number and Inspire ID carried over. So that helps with streamlining the right data that you need, and it's authoritative, which is great. A big asset in terms of streamlining things. So I'll just delete that because we don't want to be working on that. And then secondly, what you just saw there is another way to get land registry data. We have land registry freehold, land registry other. So those are different titles that are either not owned or are under a different ownership, I believe. And then we've also got leasehold too. So they're highlighted in green as well. Again, I can click on any of these, but this time, again, we've got that data around the title number, the size, etc. But I've got these options here. And if I click ownership, I can actually see if it's a corporately owned land title. So if a company owns it, I can see the details of that owner right here. So we've got GSE Trustees Limited. Sorry if anyone from GSE Trustees Limited is here. And we can copy all of that information onto our clipboard like so. So that's one aspect. Or the second aspect, even, this is only available again in standard and professional licenses, so you won't see that in free. And then a third quite significant thing I want to mention that we've just brought in, it's a work in progress. You can buy directly from the land registry private or details and title deeds and information of privately owned land titles too, by clicking on that button there. At the moment, it's not actually live. There's actually, if I click on that, it will take me to a survey. We've been quite cheeky there at the moment, and we're collecting survey answers from the likes of yourselves, and just to give us an idea of is this information useful, why I'm using it, and what tier it should sit in, basically, and how it's going to be useful to you in that tier. So we're really interested. If anyone at the moment you see that in a professional subscription, and if you are in professional and this is important to you, please do click on that Buy Titles button and complete the survey, because that would really help us in how we develop that. So, covered all the bases around land registry. I'll just turn off that data layer like so. And we'll focus now on our two sites. So you can imagine you've identified these areas. They might be for sale, or they might have been talked to you within your portfolio or estate perhaps, and you've imported them into land registry. A really simple, quick and thing you can do next is you'll want to overlay different data layers over these areas to tell you more about them. In this context, you probably would have already done that if you're looking for solar farms, looking at different distribution network operators and the overhead lines that sit over it. And we've got that data layer in Land App. And I've got all these different lines which represent overhead lines now in different colors, representing different voltages, essentially. And we can see here that this one is ideal. We've got a few overhead lines above us. This orange one running through is a 33 kilowatt. And likewise, for this one over here, we've got plenty of lines we can connect to, ideal for a solar site. We'd also want to look at a lot of other data layers in this process. But before I trundle through all of these different data layers, we can run something called a data layer report in Land App, which I can access up here from the reports page. And you'll get this tab first as your plan reports, and these are actually not what we want. These are just a breakdown of the different features that would sit within one of your plans. We want to click this tab here and look at data layers. What these are is I'll pick data layers like so. I'll choose site 2 for this one. And it will tell me whether these data layers intersect with my boundary. So in a context where we want to be looking at this site, is it ideal for solar or any other types of planning? And what are the potential opportunities and constraints around or within that? I can choose all of those here. And just for interest, let's go to local planning authority. So we've got things like AONBs, or that should be national landscapes now, potentially green belts, looking at different local nature reserves, national parks, triple SIs, the triple SI impact risk zone, maybe scheduled monuments. We might want to be thinking about the different, I think it's landscape, the provisional agriculture land classification, so whether it's in grade 1 to 6 land, potentially different habitats, maybe ancient woodland. We touched on the invertebrates on here. in the updates, and then I won't go for too long. Let's just pick flood zones too, like so. And then give it a name. So we'll go solar site 2 report, if I can spell. There we go, and click done. And then whilst that's running, I've just prepared a couple of others to show you here. So you can do this at any size in terms of the area that you want. There's no limit to that at all. In Land App, and I've actually chosen Bath and North East Somerset County, which is where I am now. So you can do really big areas if you're looking at, how much building potential is there from a certain area, or how much green cover or nature sits within it. You can check that here. So in Bath and North East Somerset, we've got about 920 hectares of triple SIs, quite a large area, sits within a triple SI impact risk zone, so 100%. You can look at different trees that sit within the county, registered battlefields, etc. Lots of grade 3 land and grade 4 land, so not the prime agricultural land we might get in the east, perhaps. You can look if how much of the land sits under countryside stewardship, and you've got that there, which is quite interesting. So a quarter of Bath and North East Somerset is currently on ongoing environment schemes, and all those different options there, which is really interesting. So you can look at what are the most prominent options in countryside stewardship that sit within that county. So a lot here on grassland, different sheep netting infrastructure, like so. If we go right down, you can see the same. There's a huge amount. Really quickly, you can understand about different areas of land with um, this function. Oh, we want to go back there. And then in this context, with this two solar sites, if I was weighing them up of which ones are probably which one is ideal or more ideal than the other, I can compare the two. So I've made solar site 1 here. I just want to quickly glimpse at different designations. So it's quite a high area in a flood zone, nearly 80%. So now both mostly flood zone 3, so that could be an issue. NVZ as well. And then 100% sits within a triple SI impact risk zone. So that's not great, but still definitely some scope. Compared to solar site 2, so we've got 0% in a flood zone, which is a bonus. It's mostly grade 3, so that's great. Also sitting in a triple SI impact risk zone. So there's things I need to be aware of that I've taken from this data layer report that I need to jot down and probably think of. So potentially Natural England here, potentially Environment Agency there. But all the others that I've considered opportunities or constraints, they're not present. So I don't really need to worry about those now. And no need to overlay all of them one by one just to check whether they sit in it. So from that, we can deduce site 1's heavily in a flood zone, but site 2 is looking more ideal. So we'll run the demo looking at site 2. We'll turn off site 1 there. Okay, great. Next step, we want to be probably honing in on some of those key data layers that we talked about. We know which ones we don't need to look at. We know which ones we do. And we want to consider, in this context, probably the routes. That's the main thing, the routes to power. So we want to build solar. We need to look at how we connect that to the grid or operation networks. So we're happy with that. We've got, say for this area site, it's 40 hectares. We're looking at a decent kilovoltage from that. And we've got this orange line here, which is with UK Power Networks. It's 33 kilowatt. So that's a quite neat, easy evaluation I can make. Probably a good opportunity here. I can add some kind of transformer or inverter to my map. that can connect to that overhead line there. And we'll just draw that like so. We can give that a label, let's say inverter transformer. Okay, we'll turn that on. So in cases where you might need to evaluate a route that's quite far, it's outside of your boundary, so you can imagine this site wasn't anywhere near any overhead lines. We might need to create some kind of connecting infrastructure outside of the boundary. That's where potentially that land registry by titles data layer would come into hand, because if we're thinking about any kind of infrastructure outside of our boundary, we'll want to understand who owns this land. We'll need to get in touch with them, is our plan. Okay, and get permission from them too. So that's one use case potentially for that private title deed purchase. But we're happy with that. We've got our DNOs close by. We're happy with the transformer that's sitting there. Next step, we probably want to look at the details of the features within the boundary. And I noticed we did have a slight public right of way potentially here, so we can just overlay that like so. We have right going across this land that we've highlighted. So we probably don't either want to be building over that, or I can see that potentially there's some woodland or some kind of natural features down here from our Ordnance Survey data too. So we want to be mindful of that. It's quite a large area. So what we can do is just section off using this split function. Nice working area in our map. So we don't want to work on that. Let's give that a nice grey, like so. And then this is our new working area. We might want to add a buffer, side 2, which is the inside, maybe working around that area, like so. Again, just to clear any bases if we're near this public right of way. Just want to ease out of that a bit by creating this buffer here. So that's ticked off. We've checked our public rights of way. We might want to look at access now. And again, from this land registry data, I've got this track, or what looks like a track, running through. Yeah, there we go. We want to think about that too and start plotting it within our map. So again, using this drawing function, we've got a whole range. I've chose area for the transformer, but for this track, we probably want to choose line. And then with this quite hidden thing, and I have to admit, it's not the most discoverable in Land App. There's this interactive map button here. We want to turn that on. And what that will do is, against this Ordnance Survey data, it will snap to line and just follow the different detail that we have on our map, like so. So if I go across like that, maybe not this one here, we'll just move up there. There we go. It's moving nicely against my line. So if you can see, it's snapping like so to each of these details on the map. Little squiggle there. And we can just move up, create this track. Like so. And click finish. And that will be our track and access. It's just a line at the moment. So what we could do, again, just use that buffer just to widen it a bit. I think the default is 8 meters, which we can set there, which is great. So we've got that covered. We can give it a name as well, like so. So the key bases there, public rights of way and access to our site are ticked off. We can see, again, from this Ordnance Survey background, that we've got potentially quite a bit of vegetation on the map too. And we can also use that aerial imagery base map as well to view. But we've got parcel breakdown. We've got these quite thick lines of trees breaking up the different fields, which we don't want to get rid of. So there's a couple of different things we could do here. Again, we could draw lines over this just to divide it up, or we could, going back to the Ordnance Survey base map, go to our data downloads, and there's a data download tool here called vegetation data that we can choose to download and then place different vegetation above 2.5 meters on our map. And this is downloading from a few different data sets, including Environment Agency's vegetation object model. And then also it's actually from Meta, as in Facebook Meta. You can see there, and WRI, which is a global data set. We chose the Meta, we did tests, and the accuracy was actually very, very good. So that's the reason why it's in there. And then in a few seconds, that should have downloaded for us, like so. So we've got that new plan on our map for us, showing the different vegetation. So I click on any of these, it's judging this as woodland. And that's nicely laid out on our map. Should be pretty accurate in where it's showing that. And that looks pretty good to me. And now we've got that instantly on our map, really quickly, really simple. And from there, we've got a nice outline in which we want to plot our solar. So that's ticked off. We've got our public access, got our vehicle access, our transformer, and our vegetation. The last thing we probably want to be thinking about, and you can relate all of this to any projects that you're working on, is the aspect, particularly for solar. So it's a nice south-facing title. You could use this Ordnance Survey terrain base map or data layer even, and we can gouge that it's looking relatively flat, perhaps not over here in that area that we've sectioned off. So it was a good idea we did that. And it's looking good optimum flat or terrain, if you like, for our solar. Again, on top of that, we could go back to our data downloads and use this tool here called the slope identifier to give us an even more advanced look at the different terrain that we might be getting on this map. So again, another couple of simple steps. We'll choose our plan, which is solar site 2. Give it a name. Just go slope 2. Option to add an SPI number. It's not absolutely necessary. And just click download now. Whilst that's running, I'll actually point out another slope identifier map that we've created. So it's been a good year this has been out. And usually we have quite orange, you'll see in a moment, we'll have different areas representing different steep inclines in quite orange and red shades. But we've actually very recently updated this download to have a different shade. So we've got green and blue, but we've also got these arrows as well, which is what was certainly requested, and we could just see what the direction of these slopes are. So, like so, we've got this quite dark area here. I'll just move that. Of a very high incline, so that's more than 11 degrees, going down to this lighter shade blue, which is 7 to 11, to this green, 3 to 7, and this light green, 2 to 3. So this is great, not only telling us where water might flow, but also showing us where areas are flat or not flat. And the arrows are indicating where the incline is going upwards. So we see they're all kind of heading towards this steeper area at the top. So this white area on our map here is nice and flat. So I'll just give that a refresh to see if our other one is done, which it is. I'll just turn off that one and see what it's come up with here. So that orange red um, shade that I mentioned, that's shown here. And we were right. And from that OS terrain base map, we can see this area over here is got more of an incline to this area over here, where we're thinking of doing some solar installation. Um, Interestingly, we've got these quite neat lines of different lumps and bumps, which is interesting. But again, really simple, really quick, telling you quite a bit about this area. Again, the slope identifier, you won't see this in free. It's in the standard and professional subscription. So yeah, this is going to be useful to you for different appliances or applications. Do think about upgrading. Okay, so we've got quite a lot of data now set up. We've got our vegetation, we've got the slope, and we've also got our track. Next steps, we can go further and actually start plotting our solar once we're happy with that. So to do that, I'm quite simply just going to follow these lines and plot those like here. I've got a nice guide by that vegetation data like so. We can cordon that off. We're going to think about our DNO overhead lines. We're going to think about our track access like so and just plot that up quite simply. And then one last one here. Click finish, and then we can give it a style if we want to as well. We can go for quite low opacity, and solar's usually horizontal, so let's choose this pattern like so, which looks good. And there we are. We're quite happy with this plan that we very quickly drafted up. Again, my background is not in solar and infrastructure, it's in agriculture. I've done my best, but hopefully all of this is just showing you how a lot of data about this land is quickly and easily retrievable through Land App to help speed up things, your project planning for you. Lastly, one last point before we move on to the Q&A, and I'm conscious we're on time, which we're good. We might want to print this for whatever reason. It could be looking at planning, it could be sharing it with different bodies we might be working with. And to do that, it's really quite simple. Going up to our print button, creating this frame so we can choose our paper size. Let's go for quite a big one of A2 landscape. We can choose the scale by using the fixed scale option there, and I know there's requirements. Let's go 500. Like so, give it a border. You can click, I quite like narrow because it maximizes the space around our map. And then we can choose our background. Let's run with Ordnance Survey Light. So we want to use Ordnance Survey data. You'll see a cost there. So this is product, Ordnance Survey license product and data we're using. There's a fee, annual license fee associated with that. And that will vary depending on where you're printing. So urban areas are usually more expensive than, for example, moorland or rural areas. And it will give you dynamic pricing, the cost of that in Land App 2. And there are discounts for standard and professional users of 20%, all these prints. So we're happy with that. And purchasing this, it would mean you'd have unlimited use of this frame. We can give it a header. Let's go my solar farm, pop that at the top, give it a footer, call it maybe the date. So let's go September 2025. You can give it a legend and we'll put that here. You can actually edit that legend like so. So this is where we want to add our solar panels. Here, woodland, I'm happy with that. Want our transformer track. Don't want to show the line or the area, we want to call that actually maybe boundary. We're happy with that. We can save those changes. We can make that much larger. So as I'm doing this, it's good to point out with you that if you're in a standard or professional organization, you can actually save this template that I've created there. So whether it be you want to add your logo, choosing that legend format, and just where the different headers and footers are, I can save that template for my organization and all the users that sit within it. So that again is going to help with saving time, keeping things consistent, and having saved that, any user can then go back into one of their prints or to create a new print, and this same format will be saved for them. We're happy with all of that. And then we can preview it, so we can just click buy now, give it a code, either click billable or non-billable. Billable would mean the cost of this will be invoiced to me when my regular subscription invoice will come. And if you're on a monthly subscription, that's the first of every month. Or in your annual subscription, it'll be on your renewal date. Or I could click non-billable and that will be invoiced to me straight away. And we'll just prepare that in a moment. So that's kind of wrapping up quite nicely our solar panel plan. There's more I could do. I could add labels. I could even overlay different data layers onto my map and still print those on the map too, a much larger area, which you might need to do. And go from there. Take a moment to do that. I can still have this up on my screen whilst we get into the Q&A, but I'm conscious we're right on time and I want to keep it that way. So we can move in to perhaps our Q&A. So I'll just share this. Oops, that's not the right button. There we go. Okay, so I'll head over into our Q&A and check if Rosie's ordered any questions for me, which she has. There's a couple that have come in. Okay, so from Simon, how often are your data layers updated? So we update our data layers weekly. So that's to ensure, obviously, everyone has access to the latest information. And we've actually, our data engineers have set up an automated process to check all the data sources and updates within those data layers. And then they'll automatically update in LandApp 2. So you can be confident that you should be getting at least every other week, if they change that much, the most up-to-date data layers. In LandApp, we keep a static copy of each data set in our library. So that means we'll have a reliable version to check back, and we can reference where there have been any changes too, if you point them out to us as well. So hopefully that answers your question, Simon. Thank you. Working through then, if I've got site plans drawn up, can I upload them and lay them over the map with other data layers? Yes. I think the question is around if you've got other plans or maps, perhaps from other mapping platforms. And the answer is yes, you can do that. We are fully compatible, and LandApp supports GeoJSON files, shape files, KML files, and DXF files. So where you've done mapping in other platforms, as long as they're in those file formats, those are freely importable into LandApp as new plans. So rest assured, you don't have to start all of that over again. You can quite easily download that into LandApp. Okay, no more questions at the moment. If you do have any questions, anyone, please do fire away into the Q&A. I've shown on here on this slide, I've got a QR code, and this is actually directly going to book in a link or a meeting link with any of our account managers, and you can choose which time you want to chat with us. If you do want a one-on-one call or want to find out more from us, please do scan that QR code um, and book in a call with us. We really want to hear from you.
Will, there are
Okay.
questions at the bottom.
Oh, there.
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah, thanks, Rosie, for pointing that out. I'll look on that chat there. There we go. So will you be adding SSE and National Grid, formerly Western Power, overhead lines? As I see they're not showing. Yes, thank you, Alex, for the question. So we are going to be adding those. At the moment, the privately owned overhead lines from the DNOs from UK Power Networks, um, I think the eastern one and the northwest are all in. It's the S Scottish and or Southern and Scottish SP or SC, and then as you said, formerly Western Power, that's not in just yet. We are working on that. There's reasons around licensing and API to get that in, but we do intend to get that in relatively soon. So thank you. Kaz Johnson, can you link tabular reports? Can you link a tabular report to feature on the map itself? So you can certainly you can have both photos in LandApp to and assign those to different plans, but also documents too. So that could be a PDF document that you might have. That could be a table that you have, and you can assign that to a different plan or feature on your map in LandApp. It's in that right hand attribute panel. Whenever you click on a feature and pops up, you can add it there. You can also download table data, tabular forms of your maps from LandApp 2 into a CSV. You won't be able to do that in free, so that's in the standard professional subscription. But certainly, yeah, both assigning different files, but also files exporting from LandApp 2 in tables you can do. Thank you. Looking at someone from Anonymous, can you return to edit maps and print free of charge even after purchasing prints? So you can um, some prints is the base maps, the backgrounds is where the charge comes in. So in OpenStreetMap, that's free. And then Ordnance Survey we covered, and then also Stadia Maps, which is the satellite one and the aerial imagery. We also have LiDAR in there. There's a small cost associated with them. I think the points around Ordnance Survey. So once you've purchased that license or that print, the license for that print, you can then go on to use that same frame with the Ordnance Survey data in it as many times as you want within that 12-month period. That also applies to different members in your team as well. So when you purchase that in a standard or professional account, you're technically purchasing that on behalf of the organization. So that means anyone in the organization can still use that print free of charge as well, which hopefully covers your basis there. Um, Thank you. Another one from Anonymous. Do you have any plans to introduce land registry plan as a map layer or a function for users to import map-based layers? I'm not too sure around what the HM land registry plan as a map layer means. Rosie, do you have any help with that? Of inferring that? Because we covered HM land registry around um, the different titles as well as different deeds. But could it mean perhaps as a base map?
Yeah, I think that's what they're asking. Or importing it as a file from HM Land Registry. At the moment, that's not possible.
So from a PDF point of view, that's not possible. But you can still import boundaries from land registry, as we showed. Yeah, I think that's what that means. Maybe then, if it's any PDF maps from Land Registry. Yeah, that's not quite possible just yet. So some PDFs might be georeferenced in some way, and that yeah, that's certainly doable. Of being able to create that into a geospatial file. Just in Land app, it's not quite ready to do that yet, but it's certainly on our radar. And we're thinking about bringing that method in, certainly. So thank you for the question. Thank you, Rosie. So Vincent, when you trace the line from the map layer, where is the tab? Um, not too sure on that question as well. So
I
tra
wonder if
tra
he's referring to the button for interactive map.
Oh yeah, of course. Thanks, Rosie. Um, so you should see Land App now. That button right at the bottom, interactive map. It's an off at the moment, but if I click that on and then go to draw a line, it should be snapping to the line like so. So it's tracing our Ordnance Survey base map with that interactive map on, like so. Again, yes, thank you, Vincent. It is really not the most discoverable button in Land app, and our product team are definitely aware that it's not. So hopefully soon they'll make that much more discoverable. It's right at the bottom there. Thank you. Okay, got no more questions at the moment. I'll give it a second to bring that in. Vincent, I haven't got those words at the bottom of my map. Ah,
Is Vincent on a OS base map?
is that worth pointing out? So it might be that, Vincent, that that interactive map, sorry, that my toolbar is viewed. Try and fix that. There we go. You'll need to be on an Ordnance Survey base map to view that button. Yeah, I didn't spot that. So OpenStreetMap, no interactive map. Ordnance Survey, we've got that there. So it only works on the Ordnance Survey map. Okay. Right, we haven't got any more questions at the minute. We'll give it a second. Otherwise, hope it's been a good session for everyone, and that through this kind of whistle-stop tour, you got a better grasp of the different functions that are available in Land App, and hopefully they showed that you can find out a lot more information about your different boundaries really quickly, particularly with those data layer reports and different data layers that are available. And as mentioned, we're still really developing our features around land registry, particularly on those title deeds. So if you do have any feedback to share with us around that, whether you do it through the function that I showed and that by titles button, but also if you want to submit anything to us at support at the Land app, please do so because we're keen to hear about that. Okay. Well, if there are no more questions, we can wrap up 5 minutes early. Leave it there. So, thank you very much, everyone. Really appreciate you joining. And look out for our next email around our next webinar. Thank you.